Hi, this is Esther from MMAfighting.com, and I'm here with Marc Raimondi, and we are coming to you from the Panda Dojo here in Los Angeles, just a couple blocks away from the Forum, where we will have Ortiz versus Sonnen, Bellator's big tentpole event. I wanted to talk to you about this week. It's been pretty exciting, a lot of entertainment back and forth, as mostly a kind of a disjointed war of words between Ortiz and Sonnen, mostly Ortiz not doing that well against Chael's amazing wordcraft. What have you been thinking about this week so far?
It's kind of an interesting matchup because there's no, obviously, title on the line between these two guys, Chael Sonnen and Tito Ortiz. Both guys are, I think they would both admit they're past their primes, that this is not really the marquee fight of either one of their careers, maybe not even arguably in the top 5. They're both kind of at the tail end. Tito Ortiz is going to be retiring after this. This is going to be it for him. This is his final fight. The storylines are kind of not about the fight itself, but about what is going on with both those guys. Ortiz, again, it's his retirement fight. He wants to go out on a winning note. Of course, he's a legend of the sport, UFC Hall of Famer, long-time former UFC light heavyweight champion. Chael Sonnen is a guy, it's his first Bellator fight. He's coming off this 2-year suspension from the Nevada Athletic Commission for doping. He's basically clean, as he said. He has been tested, actually, I think 3 times by CSAC so far. So he is clean. I mean, he says basically clean because that's kind of a gimmick right now. But at least as far as the California State Athletic Commission is concerned, he is clean going into this fight, which is worth noting because I know fans like to harp on that kind of thing. But what I found interesting about what Sonnen has done this week, aside from the trash talk and the quote unquote nasty line about Jenna Jameson yesterday at the press conference that everyone was talking about, what he's done is he's really, and I think this is actually his genius when it comes to selling a fight. He doesn't just sell a fight with trash talk. That's a misconception, I think, in the MMA world. It's not just the one-liners like he did yesterday with Tito Ortiz. It's also the way that he tells a narrative about a fight. Right. And the narrative that Sonnen is telling right now is that he always felt, going back to the early aughts, when Tito Ortiz was the UFC light heavyweight champion, when he was at the top of the sport, when he was really like the top draw of the sport in 2002, say. Sonnen has been saying this week that if he were given that chance, Ortiz would not have been the champion. He would not be a Hall of Famer. It would have been Sonnen in his place as that guy kind of carrying the ball for MMA. And to me, this was kind of a unique fight for him in terms of how he was going to sell it, and I think he sold it very, very well. I don't know if he really even feels the way that what he's saying, but I think that the narrative that he's giving, I mean, he truly is a genius in that way. In a pro wrestling, here's the story, here's the narrative of why we're fighting each other. Even Chael has been saying all week he wants to fight Vanderlei Silva. He said it even yesterday at the press conference. Yeah, and today he said he's on a Legends ass-whooping tour. That's right, a Legends ass-whooping tour, and really the guy, the grudge match, the fight that Sonnen is really in Bellator for is the Vanderlei Silva fight. Tito Ortiz is kind of a pit stop, but Sonnen has still managed to tell a really interesting story about this fight that really doesn't have a whole lot of meaning otherwise. Right. Actually, one of the main comments that I'm getting on all the pictures of their face-offs and so on is, this feels like it's in 2007. Yeah, it's true. And there's something weird about it because we know that both guys really probably don't dislike each other all that much. They probably have more in common than anything else, but between wrestling, probably political views as well. So you don't really you don't get a sense that they really dislike each other. We know Sonnen is selling the fight, Tito is selling the fight. It's something they've both done well throughout their careers, and I think the story has been told well, and I think it'll do very well on Saturday night. The question, I guess, is, and one of the things they said at the press conference, Scott Coker said it, John Slusser from Spike said it, is that this could be the biggest fight in UFC history, the biggest event in in Bellator history. Do you agree? Do you think this could be the biggest event in Bellator history? That's where I actually differ, because as much as this is maybe one of their best cards or whatever, there's a lot going on this weekend, and so far there hasn't been a ton of interest because of the inauguration, and tomorrow, right before all the fights, there's going to be a lot of protests and marches. There's so much so much else to think about this weekend. It's hard to concentrate on the fights. It's true. I do agree with you. I think that on a normal weekend, I think that this had a chance to break the Bellator ratings record set by Kimbo Slice last year, the late Kimbo Slice. May he rest in peace. I don't know if this will crack that number, but it could come close because, Chael Sonnen has always been at least toward the latter end of his career, of his UFC run, he was a pay-per-view draw. I mean, he was a pay-per-view fighter. He really, I mean, he debuted the FS1 card, but Chael Sonnen was a pay-per-view main event guy for a while, and I still think that he has that pull. And Tito Ortiz is truly one of the biggest names in the history of the sport, and I think they have sold it well. So I would not be shocked if it came close to, I forget the exact ratings number, but I believe it was almost close to 3 million people on Spike for the Kimbo, the Kimbo Dada and the Hoist Ken card last year in Houston. I think it could approach that.
Okay. So even though this might not be who wins or loses isn't as important, who wins or loses though? And what happens next?
I think well, if you're Bellator, you probably are hoping that Sonnen wins because Ortiz is retiring. So just from a promoter standpoint, of course you want the guy who's going to be on the roster moving forward to get the victory. Sonnen said this week that he had 6 fights on his deal. So he's in Bellator now for the long haul. This is going to be, I mean, he's going to end up being one of the faces of that promotion for the next, 2+ years for the most part. So you could imagine them wanting Sonnen to win this fight just to set up the next fight down the line, which is probably Vanderlei Silva. I think Chael's also called out like Fedor, which, I mean, these are fights that I think will do very well. And I do think Sonnen will win the fight, even though he has not been very active. Tito hasn't fought a whole lot that much either, but he's fought more recently than Sonnen has. I think that the size will play a difference a little bit in favor of Ortiz, but I do feel like Sonnen at this point in his career, he's had more success late in his career than Tito has had late in his career in some respects. It's a very hard fight to call because you just don't know, because Sonnen hasn't fought in 3 years. Tito's only fought the Liam McGeary fight, at least in the last 2+ years. So it's a very hard one to call, but I am leaning a little bit toward Chael, at least right now.
Okay. For leading into this fight, they decided to put together a very good welterweight matchup, I think, between Brennan Ward and Paul Daley. It's going to be an all-action fight, so they say, right? Right. We're hoping. How do you see this going?
Nobody better shoot for a takedown in this fight because the entire build-up for this fight, and we've talked to both men multiple times this week in LA, and they're not talking trash. All they're just saying is, we don't need to talk trash. We're just going to come in there and we're going to throw down immediately. We're just going to start throwing bombs, and that's going to be the entire fight. It would be kind of funny if one of them just shoots for a takedown, though. It would be kind of ironic. I don't see that happening. On paper, the fight looks like it could be just like you said, an all-action fight. Very exciting. Both guys really have one-punch knockout power. I'm very much looking forward to it, and I think it is a perfect table setter for a main event that could theoretically go to a decision.
Okay.
Tito Chael could theoretically go to a decision.
Right, yes.
It may not be. I mean, those guys are not known for standing and banging. Right. So Ward and Daley are very much known for that.
Yeah, that's a good table setter. You're right.
I think so.
I like that Hala called him Mickey Ward as well, and he said he would take it because it's kind of perfect. It kind of plays into the style he wants to fight at.
He does want to fight. He does want to fight that style for sure. Even though he's actually a very good wrestler, Ward. He's an underrated wrestler, but hey, I mean, if that's what people want to see, they're both in it to entertain, and I feel like this whole card is kind of about that.
Yeah, and then on the third fight, we actually have a very classic matchup, right?
Yes.
Striker versus grappler. So Gracie versus Coto. How do you? It's only his third fight, right? Or fourth fight?
It's Halleck's fourth fight.
Fourth fight.
Yep.
But it's been a long time.
2010 was the last time we saw Halleck Gracie again. And to put that in perspective, everyone talked about with Hoist Gracie coming back last year. Of course, Halleck's uncle, he hadn't fought since 2010. So we're talking about an even longer amount of time that Halleck, who's obviously much younger than Hoist, has been away from the cage. So we have no idea what to expect from Halleck Gracie. We know he's been training with Brian Ortega, who is a Gracie student going back to when he was a kid. Ortega is obviously a very good featherweight in the UFC. We know Halleck Gracie is going to have great grappling, right? I mean, there's no one's going to dispute that he's going to have fantastic grappling. How's the stand-up going to look? Don't know.
I was going to say his stand-up looked, well, just hitting mitts, you can't really tell, but he did look kind of stiff at the workouts. What did you think of the open workout?
Yeah, it's so hard to tell because you don't know what the strategy is for fighters in an open workout. You don't know if they're trying to intentionally throw the opponent off. You know, Tito Ortiz started throwing southpaw. He was hitting him at southpaw a little bit on Wednesday at the open workout. So I never really know what is there some gamesmanship going on there. I don't know, but I would imagine that Hollick would try to get it to the ground relatively quickly because Coto has one punch knockout power. I mean, this is a guy who's knocked out Joe Schilling in kickboxing and MMA. He has 2 straight knockouts, including one against AJ Matthews in his most recent fight. I mean, the guy is explosive. I mean, he has that one hitter quitter power, which you would not expect by looking at him. And he has kind of like an unorthodox style, but when he hits you, you go out. So it's a really interesting. It is that classic. It feels like a throwback type of fight.
And you were saying how great would it be though if Hollick was able to get him down and did his heel kicks to the kidneys?
Heel strikes to the kidneys.
Now that they're allowed.
So on Wednesday night when we interviewed Hollick Gracie, he was not aware of some of the new rule changes. And one of those rule changes is, of course, the removal of heel strikes to the kidneys as a foul. Mm-hmm. So now it's fair play. Now you can actually land that shot. If you have your opponent in your guard, you can land the heel kick to the kidney while holding the person in guard. That is Hoist Gracie's move. That is the Hoist Gracie technique. Mm-hmm. And when we told Hollick about that, he was so excited. He said, "Holy moly!" It was just he could not believe this was now a thing that he could do, and he said we may have to throw that in there if it comes to that. If Coto is in his guard, we may see the heel strike to the kidney, which in 2017 by a Gracie would be super cool. I don't know. I would mark out if that happened.
It would be great. Let's. I want to go to actually just the rest of the card and just kind of hit on what are some of the other fights that you're looking forward to? Because there's 18 fights on this card.
There are 18 fights. I think only 5 of them will be on the broadcast, which begins at 6 p.m. Pacific and I think ends at 9 p.m. Pacific. So they're going to get 5 fights into the 3-hour block. I think that it is very good matchmaking for a card like this because this is a card that obviously Bellator wants to put its best foot forward, right? This is 2 of their biggest names, and the rest of the card isn't necessarily big names. Paul Daley is, of course, a reasonably big name, but it isn't necessarily big names as much as it is really interesting, possibly action-filled fights. If you look at, aside from Gracie Coto, which is I think very intriguing in a different type of way. If you look at Karakhanyan against Emmanuel Sanchez, could be an all-action fight.
Yes.
I mean, those guys really like to throw down. They really like to stand and bang. Derek Anderson and Derek Compost. Same type of deal. You're probably not going to see a lot of grappling in those fights. I think that this is I really foresee and I have not asked Scott Coker, Rich Chow about this, but I really feel like that was by design. They set the card up to make it. People are going to come to see Sonnen and Ortiz, and they're going to see the action fights on Bellator and say you know what, I'm going to come back for Bellator 171 and Bellator 172 next month with Fedor and Mitrione. I think that is the strategy, and I think it's brilliant. I think it's very well done, the setup of the card.
Yeah, I think so too. They have kind of reminds me of old Strikeforce shows where several of the fights were just action fights. They weren't necessarily have a lot of implications for titles or whatever, although they keep telling us that these guys might be next in line. Sure, and that's possible, but also these matchups are just for fun as well. Yes,
they are. I mean, if you, the opener, the 2 Dereks, Anderson and Compost, both guys are known for standing and trading, and I talked to Compost this week, and that's really all this guy wants to do. And so much so that Derek Anderson was going to miss weight today. He was going to come over by quite a bit, and he ended up weighing in at 160.1. But Derek Compost, when asked, said, you know what, we'll make this a catch weight. I don't care. I don't want to see Anderson suffer anymore. I don't mind him not getting fined. We'll make this a catch weight, even though Compost came in at 154. So he was right at 155. He was good to go. He said, you know what, I don't mind, Derek Anderson, don't cut any more weight. You're good. We'll make it a catch weight of 160. So Anderson does not get fined. It's a catch weight. And Compost did say that Bellator is going to take care of him. So they're probably going to throw in some, maybe the 20% that he would have gotten, or the 10% he would have gotten from Anderson's purse. Maybe Bellator kind of hooked him up with that. But I thought that was a really cool thing to do because fighters know how it is to cut weight. Yeah. They see another fighter cutting weight. They know. They've been there. They've been in that spot. They've been in that sauna. I thought that was a pretty cool thing that Compost did, and I think it speaks to how badly he just wants to get in there and fight somebody.
Yeah. Although at the weigh-ins, I looked at Anderson. He looked pretty tall and maybe a little oversized for lightweight.
He's a tall guy. He's over 6 feet tall. He's fought at 170 before. I feel like, and I'm obviously not a big fan of weight cutting, as most people know. I would like to see him at 170 moving forward, but he's been effective at 155. I mean, he has wins against Pitbull Freire. I mean, the guy is very talented. He's a good striker. He uses his range very well, so it does help him at 155.
Right.
That will be, to me, his biggest advantage in the fight, and I do see him winning it by decision with a lot owed to that reach.
Okay. We didn't get to do a pick between Sanchez and Karakhanyan, so.
Yeah, so I'm gonna lean toward Karakhanyan in this fight. I feel like he is now completely healed from that ACL that he had issues with about a year and a half ago now. He's coming off that big knockout of Bubba Jenkins. He really likes to, I mean, this is another guy who, I mean, he just wants to go out there and knock someone out.
He had the best post weigh-in speech today.
Yeah, so Emmanuel Sanchez at weigh-ins today pulled off, like, I thought it was a pretty clever freestyle rap, maybe a little Ali, in there, some rhymes. And then Jimmy Smith asked Georgie Karakhanyan, and he said, quote, "I give 0 Fs." He didn't say Fs. "I give 0 Fs about what that guy's doing. I just want to get out there and fight." I think I'm excited for that one too. I think that I do like Karakhanyan in the fight. I think it'll be close. I think Sanchez will definitely have his moments. I can see it being one of those like back and forth first rounds, eventually ending in a finish for Georgie.
That's gonna be your quick picks. Let's go from top to bottom here. Sonnen versus Ortiz.
I do think Chael Sonnen will win. We'll say 29-28 decision. Ortiz will have his moments, maybe win a round in there, put Chael on his back, but I think Sonnen takes it by decision.
All right, Daley versus Ward.
I'm taking Paul Daley. I'm taking Paul Daley by knockout. I think it's going to be one of those chaotic first rounds, maybe second rounds, and Daley catches him with the left.
Coto versus Gracie.
I'm gonna say Coto. I'm gonna say Coto by decision, not by knockout. Most people are saying knockout, but I'm gonna say Coto by decision. I think Gracie will surprise and do very well and actually raise his stock in a loss.
All right. Karakhanyan versus Sanchez. Who'd you pick?
Georgie.
Okay.
Karakhanyan.
And Anderson versus Compost. The Derricks.
I'm taking Derek Anderson. Derek Anderson.
Derek
Anderson. Decision.
All right.
So I think that is it. There are some other very interesting fights too on the prelims. We start at 3:30 at the Forum. Kevin Casey's on the prelims. Colleen Schneider's on the prelims.
Shinzo Machida.
Shinzo Machida's on the prelims. It may be the deepest show in Bellator history. Of course, Saturday night at the Forum. Gonna wrap this up. We'll see you guys out there 3:30 p.m. For Esther Lynn, I'm Marc Raimondi from MMAfighting.com. Stay tuned the rest of the weekend for all the coverage that you know and love from our staff, photos, articles, videos, the whole deal. We'll see you guys soon.